Hey everybody, welcome to the first ever episode of this new NFL podcast brought to you by the Props Network. We're calling Pile It On. I am one of your hosts, Steve Clark, joined as I will always be by my friend, my gambling equal. Ooh, a cat. If you're watching the video, there's now a cat on the screen.
The host is not the cat. This is one of my beloved Motor City kitties. I'm Joel Walkowski. You might know me as the professional gambler. You might know me from Roast Battle or as the Lions fan from Fan Therapy. Good to be here. I had a blast doing the free agency podcast with you, so we decided we'd keep this good thing rolling.
That's right. Joel was a guest on the last podcast that we had on the Props Network here. We talked about the NFL free agency. Last week, we covered every single team, every single move. If you want to get caught up on free agency, go check that out. But for now, you are here on Pile It On. And we have a lot to talk about because the NFL is the only thing that's giving us any news.
Yeah, I'm blocking out the NFL draft in my calendar now. I'm telling everyone related to me, hey, April 22nd through 25th, I'm unavailable after 5 p.m. And I do like the name Pile It On. It's got a couple of meanings for us. We're gamblers here, so we're piling on the money. It's pile on. It's what you reach out when you're trying to get a touchdown. Wow. So I think it works for what we're going to do here. We're going to do a little bit of comedy, a little bit of football analysis, and when the season starts, we're going to put a strong gambling emphasis.
Yeah, that's right. That is ultimately what we will be talking most about once the season starts. Once we have stuff to bet on. It's tough right now to be a sports gambler. Right now, you kind of have to stoop to the level of betting on like simulated Madden games, which DraftKings is offering.
Yeah, it's a great outlet if you are truly jonesing. I did get invited to a virtual poker game last night, and I couldn't play because I agreed to watch Better Call Saul with my mom. So I didn't get to have any fun because I was being a good son.
Yeah, it's tough times right now. The one thing that I wanted to talk to you about before we got into NFL stuff was
the revolution. It's the one thing everyone's talking about. You're right, a popular guy right now. Did we start the podcast to cash in on this anecdote, Steve? You can be real with me.
Yeah, we're talking about anarchy. Here's a question for you for real, Joel. Did you file for unemployment?
I did. It's impossible to get through. I've had to give them one piece of information for over 2 weeks now. I've tried 500 calls and not going through, but it's retroactive. So
it is.
Yeah, so really we're just in purgatory, not hell.
Okay, good. Yeah, I just started the process this week, and it is a nightmare. I've made no progress at all.
This is the good anecdote from Steve I was telling our listeners about. You got to listen to our podcast. This guy, he's unemployed.
Yeah, this is one of the many podcasts where it is two white men who are unemployed. So I hope you're
in Brooklyn. It's great.
In Brooklyn, New York. Yeah, that's right.
In Brooklyn. I wasn't this first rat to desert this sinking ship at all.
Yeah. I'm still here. So I went out to shoot hoops at my local basketball court today, and I couldn't do it because there were so many people out there.
Oh, that's rough. I'm not going to lie. I am, for those who don't know, I am a staple of the New York comedy basketball scene, and I'm using this time to reinvent my game. I started a Pilates regimen. I've been working on my shooting an hour a day, and it's a little bit embarrassing, but I didn't turn down a quarantine game. I'm shooting, and the starting five of the local high school basketball team goes up. And
what?
I joined a 3-on-3 game with him. I kept my distance. I mostly shot, so I definitely got over 6 feet from him. And we were stopped by the police. The police rode up to the court, and they're like, "You can't play here." And I was like, "Wow, this is the best trash talk I've ever heard."
Yeah, yeah. It's a good time to be inside. And while I've been inside recently, I watched Tiger King. You watched Tiger King, right?
Absolutely. A pink tuxedo has never looked so good. Carole Baskin definitely fed her husband to the Tigers. And yeah, it's replaced sports. It's the one unifying piece of monoculture we have during the quarantine.
Yeah. So I grew up in
So
Tampa,
I
Florida.
understand you have a personal connection
Yeah.
to the Tiger King.
I grew up, my house that I grew up in is 4 miles away from Big Cat Rescue. The elementary school I went to is 2 miles away from Big Cat Rescue. And then the summer camp I went to is less than a mile away. So I drove past that place several times. I remember in 3rd or 4th grade, me and my 9-year-old friends joking about how the guy in charge of Big Cat Rescue got eaten by the tigers. Very happy that Tampa is back on the map for a reason other than Tom Brady, that there is a woman who almost 100% chance fed her husband to big cats. It was
Yeah,
just a trippy thing to watch.
Yeah, and like really, if between Big Cat Rescue and Tom Brady, Tampa is the center of the world right now. Anything worth following exists in Tampa, Florida.
It's true. And they showed Carole Baskin as a 17-year-old walking down Nebraska Avenue, which anyone who grew up in Tampa knows Nebraska Avenue is where the sex workers go. So my opinion, and everyone I've spoken to that's from Tampa agrees that Carole wasn't just walking around Nebraska because she got in an argument with her boyfriend. She was a sex worker as a 17 or 18-year-old. And there's nothing wrong with that, but she should have just been outright about it. Why else are you on Nebraska Avenue at that time of night, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a new podcast, but this is a pro-sex worker
Very
podcast.
pro-stock.
Sex
Yeah,
work
absolutely.
is real work. But there is a correlation between, like, women who wear that many cat prints aren't exactly chaste. Like, when those pants leggings leave the store, 90% of the time they walk down Nebraska Avenue.
That's exactly right. That's what Tampa is. Show is wild, but there is other wild stuff to talk about that actually relates to this show, which is the NFL. And something that I really want to talk to you about, because I'm a Rams fan, is this stupid new Rams logo that they released last week.
Absolutely.
So they released 2 different images. They released the LA with the horn over it, which looks like a tech company's logo. It doesn't look like a football team's logo. And then they also released the ram head that has a penis for a nose. Both I thought were complete misses. Terrible. I'm going to be so upset next year when I have to see that logo next to the score of the Rams. What are your thoughts on this logo?
Well, with several teams in the NFL, they have these classic uniform helmet designs.
Yeah.
So like the Rams, the Bengals, if it doesn't affect the helmet, I'm good with it. Does it affect the helmet?
I don't think so. I hope not. I hope they just take the new horns on the new logo and just add that to the helmet. As long as it's still horns on the helmet, I'm fine.
Yeah, because if you look back at football history, the first ever helmet design was the Rams helmet design.
Yeah.
That was the first time anyone painted something on the side. So as long as they don't change that, I'm okay with it. I think they're just trying desperately to resonate with the city that doesn't like football and somehow has 2 franchises.
Right. Yeah, Jesus, it's a disaster. Eric Dickerson spoke out about it. He's always been very vocal when things with the Rams aren't going the way he wants them to.
Has Eric Dickerson ever been on good terms with the Rams? He forced a trade as a franchise player.
Yeah.
He boycotted games until Jeff Fisher got fired, and now he's mad at the logo. And like, I'm all for like teams honoring their former players, but if anyone were to warrant the treatment the Knicks gave Charles Oakley, it's Eric Dickerson.
Yeah, I totally agree. Here's the thing with Dickerson. He is the best running back to ever play on the Rams. That being said, he was only on the Rams for 4 years. He was not on the Rams for a super long time. He only spent his rookie contract on the Rams before he forced a trade. But while he was there, let me see, I pulled up the stats he played in 65 games and rushed for 7,245 yards.
Yeah, over 100 yards per game. And he played in the Earl Campbell era, and the Rams were pretty good.
They were good. They lost the postseason. Yeah,
they lost a Super Bowl with him, didn't they?
Yes, and he was the offense. There was a 2-year stretch, his rookie year and his second year, where he rushed for close to 4,000 yards between the 2 seasons. He rushed for he had the 2,000-yard season where he rushed for 2,100 yards, and then he rushed for 1,800 yards the year before. So he is a Rams icon for sure. That being said, there are bigger Rams personalities than Eric Dickerson, but for some reason he is the guy who was always in the news talking about the Rams.
Yeah, but he has a unique place in the team's history because a lot of the Rams' best years came in St. Louis with Warner, with Marshall Faulk, who was probably a better running back than Eric Dickerson. I hate to say it, but if you're 50 years old in LA, you might have some Eric Dickerson memories, and no one else has that connection to the fan base. What are they going to do? Warren Beatty's going to come out from his character from Heaven Can Wait.
I agree. And here's the thing. When the Rams were in St. Louis, you never saw Eric Dickerson talking this much about the Rams. He's clearly an LA Rams guy, which for me as a St. Louis Rams fan, get out of here. I don't give a shit about you, Eric Dickerson. If you were going to be a Rams guy, stay with the Rams through all their movements. Like I've done. I've stayed with them even though they moved. Where was he when they were in St. Louis?
Yeah, but I think you might be occupying a very slim demographic on the pie chart. You've described yourself as a current St. Louis Rams fan. That's also true of people who get jerseys from secondhand stores, not because they like the team, they just need a shirt.
Yeah, that's about where I fall in this Venn diagram of Rams fans.
And there were a lot of St. Louis Rams jerseys. That was the early 99 through 2000 golden age of player replica jerseys.
Yeah.
The Falk was everywhere. The Allstott was everywhere. I think I'm going to mention the Mike Allstott jersey trend for kids every episode of this podcast.
He was the best. Yeah,
there's video of him pulling a truck. So you that's how he trained.
Okay, so speaking about this logo, we decided we would make our own versions of the Rams logo and share them on the show. Neither of us have seen what the other person made. Do you want to start and show yours?
Yes, I will start. And by beginning this process, I would like to offer an apology in advance for anyone who is offended. The idea made me laugh, but I was also slightly offended, but I did it anyway. And so the Rams need a connection to the local culture. And I came up with a logo design that allowed them to celebrate a Los Angeles icon as well as the most famous LA Ram in history. And of course, that LA Ram being Kobe Bryant's helicopter crash.
Holy shit.
So we have the smoke. It makes the LA there. So you have some real local color. And I just think people will be glad to remember his contributions to the city. So it's a way for them to forge a future while celebrating the city's past.
Holy crap. For those listening and that can't watch,
I drew a helicopter.
Yeah, this will be on YouTube if you want to check out the video version of this podcast. You can see that horribly offensive thing that Joel drew.
You can see my drawing skills, and the Props Network knew what they were getting into. I have a background with roast battle, so when put on the spot, I just write the most offensive thing I can. So I loved Kobe. I cried for a week, but punchlines are punchlines, even when they're just color pencil drawings.
All right, mine's a little different. Not any better or any worse.
Mine's a little different.
Mine's more. Here, I'll share it now.
Ooh, that's very good.
So I've got the new Rams logo head kicking me square in the nuts in the city of St. Louis by the St. Louis Arch, and then we got Stan Kroenke driving a plane with a banner behind it that reads "Eat shit," and then there's a big piece of poop on the ground.
Okay, so yeah, I could see that really going well on some Walmart clothes, and I think it's interesting that we both took such an aviation theme with this process.
Yeah, it is interesting. This was more me, like a cathartic way for me to get out how I feel the team has treated me for the last 15 years or so. Okay,
so have you thought about jumping ships? Is there a franchise that you would consider going to? I mean, what are the rules for taking a new team?
I don't know if there's any regulations or rules for taking a new team. I don't know if I could do it. Like the closest thing I can think of would be jumping to the Bucks. Right now, I
Which you
can't
can't
do
do.
that. I can't do that for the next 5 years. So
And next year and a half,
yeah,
really.
maybe just 1 year.
He's 43 years old. It's not going to go great. Like, I'm going to side with Belichick in this one.
Yeah. So no, I think I have to stick with the Rams, even though they've completely treated me and the city of St. Louis like trash.
But you are from Tampa Bay, so
Right.
do you have much of a connection to the city of St. Louis? Or
Yeah, so St. Louis is where my entire family lives still. Like my parents and I were the only people in our family who do not live in the city of St. Louis. So like growing up, my cousins, my aunts, my uncles, every Christmas, every birthday, the gifts would just be St. Louis Rams and St. Louis Cardinals gear. Whenever I would go up there, we'd go to a game. So it's like, that's the connection for me, is like a family connection. So that's why it stung so bad 4 years ago when they fucking left.
yeah, but it's like an abstract pain, It's not affecting you directly, it's affecting your loved ones and they have to deal with it.
Right.
So it's kind of similar to how we are as young people during this quarantine.
Exactly.
I'm real worried about my relatives, but I think I'm fine in my current situation. For us, it's being in this situation, it's us being in our 30s in our apartments. For you, it's being a St. Louis Rams fan from Tampa.
That's a perfect way to analogize it for everyone to understand.
I tie it together. I get the coffee, I get the fuel going, the insights, they just start flowing, brother.
So there you go. Those are our logos that we created. If you're listening and you're part of the Rams staff, hit us up.
And I got to give Steve some crap here. He made the outline for this show, and I know he's a Rams fan because our second order of business is Nickel Roby-Coleman signing a 1-year deal with the Eagles.
Yeah.
If you don't know, Nickel Roby-Coleman is, of course, the man who committed a pass interference. Allegedly wasn't flagged for it, admitted he got away with one, and now he's no longer on the team. So I think he's got a big presence in your memory.
Yeah, love that guy. I was there for that game. Like I mentioned last time we chatted, I was there when he clearly obstructed the path of the wide receiver and really swayed the game to make the Rams win. So he, in my opinion, is one of the most important Rams in the last 5 years.
Yeah, and I think it's actually – so he went to the Eagles, who have been going all in on reinventing their secondary. Yeah. And when I first saw it, I was like, oh, is this like the David Tyree signing? Like this guy's just a historical footnote who was involved in one play. But
no,
he didn't get too much of an opportunity to really be – a first or second corner with the Rams.
No, he was our slot guy, but he was incredible in the slot. He's a great slot corner. Do you think the Eagles are going to put him as like a number 1 or number 2?
No, Darius Slay will be the number 1, and they still got some other talent in the secondary, so he'll probably play slot there. And if you look at his Pro Football Focus grades, last year was a 74.9. The season before that, 82.6, which,
He's a good corner.
Yeah, for a cornerback, those are really great ratings. Like for 2018, he was the 8th highest rated corner in the NFL.
Yeah, he's very solid. I'm very upset we're losing him. We're losing a lot of players on defense. It's not looking good.
There are concerns about his size. He is only 5'8", but, given Schwartz's scheme, I think he'll be able to just be in coverage isolation. He won't be in any run packages whatsoever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'll miss him. He
And
gave us some good memories.
And there's another big loss that was also a big part of your favorite memory. Like, wow.
Yeah. So Greg Zuerlein just got signed by the Cowboys, so the Rams lost Zuerlein too.
And what was the reason for letting Zuerlein go?
I think he just demanded too much money for a kicker. He's been incredible. I think we've had him for like 6 or 7 years now, and he's really been the most consistent part of our team for the last 6 or 7 years. I will say that he's been suffering injuries the last couple of years. So he's missed a couple games here and there. He's had like groin issues, I think, but he's still delivered. I think last year was his worst year of his career. He kicked like 72%, but he's typically an 80% kicker at least. And yeah, he's the guy that sealed the deal in the NFC Championship game with like a 53-yard kick and now he's gone too.
Yeah, and you see, there's so much of roster construction. We'll get into this a little bit later with my thoughts on the Denver Broncos. But once you sign your quarterback to that second contract and you pick your stud players like they have, like they're going in on Donald, Jalen Ramsey, Jared Goff, and probably Cooper Kupp.
Right.
And once you have that, you don't really have the ability to sign your own mid-range players to the kind of $5 million extensions that are so valuable to a franchise.
Especially with a kicker. Like, we're not going to drop that much money on a kicker when we're in this cap situation. So I understand it.
Yeah, it's sad to see him go. And, like, I would be genuinely sad, like, to have a kicker, like, who's steady, has contribution. It means so much. And as a Lions fan, like, that's the only thing that I've been able to take for granted over the course of my lifetime.
Yeah, Matt Prater, baby.
Matt Prater, Jason Hansen gave me 20 good years before him. So
that's true.
And who's the replacement?
I have no idea. I don't even know if we have another kicker on the roster right now. So that'll be interesting because having a bad kicker is one of the most frustrating things in football. As a person who likes watching the Bucs, that's something that's plagued them since they got rid of Matt Bryant, basically, is they just haven't had a kicker who can kick.
Yeah, and I also had a departure from my kicking game. Lions punter Sam Martin signed with the Denver Broncos, and I'm actually a little bit enthusiastic about it for some off-the-field reasons.
Oh, interesting.
You know, I'm a huge John Matthew Stafford proponent, but my biggest off-field worry about him is that his best friend is the punter. Like, if you
Isn't that a good thing?
No way. You want him hanging out with his receivers, maybe with his head coach.
Okay.
But to be buddy with the punter, like they go on vacations. It's those two families and then Matt Ryan's families.
Oh God.
So like I just think Stafford needs to be surrounding himself with a little bit more edge, you know?
You might be right.
Like, who did Michael Jordan hang out with? Charles Oakley.
Yeah.
Matthew Stafford, you need to find your Charles Oakley. Your wife's all healed up. Go gamble, play golf, live it up, and just get that rugged edges aggressiveness. This is a chance for you to rebuild your social life.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's very true. We need Matt Stafford to have an edge to him. That's why he's been injured lately. Not tough enough.
Well, that thing was fake, right?
That injury was fake?
He wanted to play through it. He didn't want the Lions to put him on injured reserve. And from what I understand, he's a little bit upset with the Lions' handling of that situation. Like,
he thought he could. But it's Matt Stafford, though. Like, he's the same guy who – didn't he throw a touchdown on, like, broken ribs that one game?
Yeah, he ended our NFL longest losing streak with a dislocated shoulder against the Cleveland Browns. And there was it's the greatest NFL mic'd up moment in history.
Yes. So he would have played through a broken back. I believe that his back was messed up. Yeah.
I'll see you later. Sorry, my fiance left. She's going to go bring Stafford back to hang out with me.
Yeah. All right. There's a few other news things to get through here. The Bucs re-signed Ndamukong Suh to a 1-year, $8 million contract.
I'm so in on it. I know he had a bad rap from the Jets, but I've really liked the work Todd Bowles has done throughout his career.
Yeah.
And you see that, like, he kind of supports this Arians method of older players have good success in his schemes.
Right.
So I love the signing. You need to stop the run game to be competitive in this game, make your other team's offense a little bit more one-dimensional.
Yeah.
And this is a great signing for that.
Yeah. You want to talk about some of these possible landing spots for some of these bigger name free agents that are still out there?
Oh, sure. So biggest names out there are Cam Newton, Jameis Winston, and Jadeveon Clowney.
Yep.
And first of all guys, I think you can buy low on and have a pretty good return.
I agree. I think especially the quarterbacks here, they're at this point, it seems unlikely they're going to find a starting job. So you're not going to have to pay them a ton of money. They're high ceiling guys, both of them. And at the very least make for the best backups in the NFL and possibly pretty good starters. So
And let's look at Cam Newton for a second.
Okay.
He 2015, he was the best player in football.
Mm-hmm.
He had a rough Super Bowl performance, but if you go back and you watch that tape, he had a lot of big drops from his receivers that game.
Yeah.
And he remained effective through the beginning of the 2019 season.
Yeah.
I know he didn't play great last year, but there were rumors about his shoulder being an issue going way back to training camp.
Yeah.
So
they didn't handle it correctly.
So now the word out of Cam's camp is that he's totally healthy. And again, if he were to go to Chicago, I think that could be a dark horse team that could win the NFC, but that didn't happen.
Right.
They went with Nick Foles.
Yeah.
So is there a place you would like to see Cam play?
Yeah, I think best case scenario for Cam would probably be the LA Chargers. I know they said they want to stick with Tyrod, but Cam to me is just a bigger, faster, better Tyrod Taylor. They play similar games. So Cam would fit the scheme that they're planning for Tyrod. I know that when Tyrod played in Buffalo with Anthony Lynn, the scheme they ran was a lot of RPO, which Cam is suited for, a lot of play action, which Cam is suited for. Austin Eckler is like a tan, bald Christian McCaffrey, which Cam is used to playing with someone like that. So at this point, I don't understand why they're not taking a flyer on him. They have the cap room. They've already said that they want a starter this year to kind of bridge the gap between now and when they groom whoever they draft this year. And why not go with Cam? He gives you a fighting chance to win, to even make a playoff run with the roster they have. They have talent on that roster, especially the offense. And with a guy like Cam, whose upside is incredible, versus Tyrod, whose upside is maybe 8 wins, I think it's a no-brainer.
And I actually like what you came up with there. I have my own answer, but I like that for 2 reasons, Steve. First of all, we touched on this with our Rams conversation where you had the real offensive logo. But Los Angeles, these teams need to make a splash in the marketplace. LA resonates with stars, and Cam Newton is a star.
Yeah.
I can see his outfits being so well received in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And like Cam is like a larger than life persona, and he's played all of his career in the American South. If you go to Hollywood, he's not going to be this lightning rod for criticism like he was in the SEC.
Yeah, totally.
He's going to be accepted as one of them, which is the best thing the Chargers can do from a PR perspective.
Totally.
And meanwhile, the Chargers, they had the year from hell last season.
Mm-hmm.
They were a very competitive, very talented team who was just riddled with injuries, and then a lot of games didn't go their way. And if they sign Cam Newton, that opens them up with this number 6 pick.
Yeah.
And I think there's a pretty rare opportunity if they were to pair Isaiah Simmons with Derwin James as these sort of like hybrid safety linebackers. I think that's an asset no other team in the league could match.
Yeah.
They already have an incredible pass rush, and doesn't that seem like it could be a 12-win team?
Every year they seem like they could make a playoff push, and the last few years they just haven't put it together. Injuries, fluky losses. But yeah, having a quarterback like Cam who can win you himself a couple of games just with his legs, with his playmaking ability. I don't know why they don't take a flyer.
And I think the Chargers is a done deal, but I think Cam Newton deserves better from a legacy perspective.
Okay.
And I would like to see him end up as a New England Patriot.
Okay.
So I think he's actually a guy who is a really good culture fit. He's a natural leader, and the throws you're asked to make in that New England offense aren't incredibly difficult throws. You're hitting guys in the flats. It's not like you have to fit it through a window like a Aaron Rodgers or Matt Stafford scheme. Like Brady's receivers are generally pretty open. Yeah. So that makes up for his biggest weakness, accuracy. And like, just from a selfish point of view, like I would like to see what a Josh McDaniels offense looks like incorporating a mobile quarterback.
Totally. It'd be exciting to see those coaches work with someone who's an asset like Cam.
Yeah, like if Cam goes to the Patriots, like he's immediately the best quarterback in the division, I would say.
Yeah.
Then you get it. I know a lot of Pats fans are high on Stidham, but that gives him another year of development. So I see it as a win-win for either one.
Okay.
Okay, so our next candidate is Jameis Winston. What do you think, Steve?
So with Jameis, I have a place where I would really like to see him go and a place where I absolutely do not want to see him go. I think a place where he would do well is the Pittsburgh Steelers as a backup to Big Ben for a year and then maybe take over the year after. The Steelers, as we saw last year, need a starting caliber backup quarterback because Big Ben is unhealthy often, especially now that he's 38 years old. He looks like a man who is in his mid-50s. He's on the wrong side of 250 pounds. He just doesn't look great. And I think that injuries will continue to plague him for the rest of whatever is left of his career. And Jameis is similar to Ben Roethlisberger in many ways, on and off the field. But on the field, he stands in the pocket. He can throw for a lot of yards. He threw for 5,000 yards last year. They both have like the arm talent to make those big throws. And I think he would fit scheme-wise with the Steelers. Where do you want to see Jameis land?
I think you completely nailed it. I think Pittsburgh is the best case scenario because they run such a downfield scheme, and Roethlisberger is kind of like Cam like Jameis if he had a couple warts removed from his game. So in terms of a long-term saving his career, he's still relatively young. I think he's only 2 years older than Joe Burrow. So there's time for him to turn around, and Pittsburgh is probably the place to do it.
Yeah, I agree. And it's a good, he needs to be humbled a little bit. He's been a starter his whole career, going somewhere where you're learning from someone who might become a Hall of Famer, sitting on the bench. I think that could help some of his erratic throws and settle him down a little bit moving forward.
Yeah, and Pittsburgh's backup quarterbacks, they weren't anywhere near replacement level, and that's the reason their season went downhill. And respect to Mr. Roethlisberger, but someone of his build and his dedication to training doesn't strike me as someone who's going to age very gracefully.
Right. And then the place that I think would be the worst case scenario for Jameis would actually be New England.
Yeah.
And the reason
I tried to talk myself into that, but I don't see it happening.
So here's why. Belichick's a great coach. The system's great. Jameis would probably thrive in that system, but I'm not sure he would ever see the field. I think he would be immediately suspended because of all the delicious Massachusetts seafood he'd be around every single day. Massachusetts boasts more than 80 different types of fish that live inside the Commonwealth's inland waters, including catfish, bass, trout, cod, tuna, haddock, pollock, halibut, striped bass, and of course, plenty of lobsters, oysters, and clams.
Yeah, and if
he had that much trouble in Tallahassee keeping his hands off of seafood, he wouldn't stand a chance in Massachusetts.
Yeah, if he has a good agent, his agent won't let him anywhere near New England or Baltimore. They just do too good a job harvesting crustacean proteins, and you're going to see that really affect Jameis Winston's free agency destination.
And Jameis, I mean, he's made strides in the last few years to become a better person, but as someone who likes watching the Bucs, it was hard cheering for them since he joined the team just because of his checkered past. The stealing lobsters from Publix thing aside, that's just kind of a joke. He has, not a great history. So now I feel great as someone who will watch the Bucs next year, being able to cheer for a guy whose only checkered past is that he cheats at football and kisses his teenage son on the mouth.
Yeah, and there's a couple destinations. You want to see Jameis, for all his, I'm going to focus on the on-field product. He might not have great production. He might not be a winner, but his offense has really moved the ball well. So I could see him going to Indianapolis if they decide to move on from Jacoby Brissett, which at his price tag would make sense. So I could see him playing in whatever offense they're catering to Phillip Rivers, learning under his wing, becoming the 12th child, and maybe finding a home there.
Yeah, I was thinking that as well, just giving him a year to sit behind Phil, because I don't know how many years Rivers has left.
Can't we
having him be kind of the heir apparent.
So can't we just talk to the Raiders? Say, hey, cut Derek Carr. You're moving to a new city. Vegas loves the show. Sign Jameis. Sign Marcus Mariota. Make a reality show about them competing for the starting job. Are you telling me you wouldn't watch
Yeah,
that?
I would absolutely watch that.
Yeah, we have
What a
these.
story.
Yeah, and they're like they have the opposite casting, and then it would be great.
It would be great. It'd be a nice revisit of the rivalry of their draft class.
Yeah, and we're going to get into that a little bit later. Let's move through these other stories pretty quickly.
Yeah, we're running out of time here. So much to talk about the NFL. It's great.
Yeah, in sad news, Travis Frederick retired, and this is another All-Pro caliber player retiring early. How long are we to keep calling this early retirement?
How old is he? 30?
He's 29 years old, so it's about the same age as Andrew Luck, Luke Kuechly,
Right.
Patrick Willis, a few others.
I think at a certain point, that is going to be the new normal. I think retiring at 30 will be the norm. I guess it depends on position. So for a center to retire at 30, I think is more understandable than a quarterback retiring at 30. Like the Andrew Luck thing completely caught me off guard. Travis Frederick, he's had health issues. He's a center. Like this one didn't catch me as much off guard. But yeah, I think 30 is going to, especially now that all the CTE studies are coming out, these players are taking a beating. I don't understand playing deep into your 30s just for the paycheck when you make millions in your first 6 years of playing in the league. I could see people retiring at 30 way more often.
Yeah, and Travis Frederick, like, it's actually a pretty prideful retirement. He was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease in 2018, played through it last year, made the Pro Bowl, but he came out and said, I have really high expectations from myself, and I can't reach the level I want to reach. And props to Mr. Frederick, but I think this could really have some catastrophic effects on the Cowboys' offense.
Yeah, both with Dak and with Zeke.
Yeah, because when you first start to really learn about football, what becomes apparent is how important the center is to the function of the quarterback and the offense as a whole. And Frederick has been Dak's center for his entire career.
Right.
And meanwhile, like the Cowboys line, I thought the past 3 seasons was one of the best assets in the entire NFL. For them to lose such a key cog at what is a really hard to replace position could really set them back and open up the NFC East. I mean, you want to think about that Philly futures bet now if you think they're going to have some hiccups with this retirement. I think they will.
Yeah, it does look a lot better to look, especially because of the fact that he waited. I mean, he waited a little longer to retire, so the Cowboys couldn't really be in play for those big centers that were available in free agency. So they've missed out on a couple veterans there. I'm not sure how they're going to fill this hole.
Yeah, I know left tackle's probably the premium, but just from the cerebral aspect of the center position, not many people are that qualified.
Yeah, it's true.
So other big move, Melvin Gordon went to the Broncos. So
that's right.
Denver's really just assembling some weapons behind Drew Lock here.
Yeah, it'll be fun. They have Philip Lindsay, who is kind of like a gadget back, and it'll be fun to have them have like a pure runner in Melvin Gordon who can maybe take early downs or maybe be their, I don't know if he will become like a 2 or 3 down running back or how they're going to split it. But yeah, they have a ton of weapons there for Drew Lock.
And I see a lot of people kind of criticizing the Broncos for this signing. Why would they spend this money? But the truth is, having a second-round rookie quarterback who's promising under contract gives you so much flexibility. This is the exact situation where you want to make this kind of splurge. And they have they have 3 really great offensive weapons, and the AFC West is starting to have some really intriguing teams.
Yeah.
Like Chargers, Broncos, like I could easily see one of those teams coalescing into like an 11-win playoff contender.
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately for them, they probably won't have a chance to win the division for a little while, but certainly a wild card spot is in the cards for at least one of these teams.
Yeah, Kansas City and their literal $177 worth of cap space is going to be pretty hard to beat. It's so great that I have more money to spend than the Chiefs right now. Hey, you might be the Super Bowl champs, but one of us can get a PS4. Last big signing was Robbie Anderson to the Panthers. They've got a lot of speed in their receiving core.
Ton of speed now. Yeah, Curtis Samuel, Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore. It's a lot of guys running 4.4s.
And then there is just this kind of cool temple connection between Matt Rule, new quarterback PJ Walker, and Robbie Anderson. There's talk about how coaches instill a culture, and like that's not on the coach. It shouldn't be for a good organization, but it's nice to have that familiarity from day one. Did you watch PJ Walker in the XFL this year? He was incredible. I think he could challenge Bridgewater for the job, guaranteed.
Yeah. I hope he does. He was so exciting to watch. I know the competition level wasn't the same, but he was legitimately tearing up the league.
Yeah, and on the other side of the spectrum, I think that Kevon Walker was the other XFL standout I saw. He signed with Pittsburgh, so him playing alongside TJ Watt could form a really formidable pass rush.
Yeah, and the Steelers signed 5 XFL players this offseason, which is fascinating.
They signed 5 XFL players and one player who probably belongs in the XFL, Mr. Eric Ebron, my least favorite professional athlete of all time. He's whiny, and he'll draw you in. He'll play a great season, but he'll drop every important pass. When he went to Indianapolis, I told all my Colts fans friends, he's going to gut you when it matters most. And then they get to that playoff game against Kansas City, drop touchdown pass. That's the Eric Ebron experience. I also watched a game with his dad's girlfriend once, and it was the Aaron Rodgers Hail Mary game, so that also takes points away from him.
Oh, no.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a traumatic experience for you.
Yeah, that was not a face mask. That play should not have happened. We have a few more signings, but do you want to jump in through just kind of... We're at 45 minutes.
Yeah, let's just burn through these. Let's just go really quick. So, Michael Brockers is back with the Rams. Apparently, the Ravens got scared by his ankle injury he suffered last year. And it's hard for these players to do physicals with the coronavirus right now. But it worked out for the Rams. They got Michael Brockers back on a 3-year deal. Speaking of Tyrod and Cam, they're working out together.
They are working out together. Things might be more done than we realize.
Honestly, who knows? They could just be withholding information until Cam can go to LA for a physical. Although if he's working out with Tyrod, he might already be out there. I'm not sure where they were when they were working out. But Herm Edwards, for whatever this is worth, said that Cam is going to be a Charger. The writing might be on the wall here.
Yeah, and it's going to be one of the more fun storylines of the season. Just back to your previous point, I think the Michael Brockers signing doesn't bode well for the Rams. I'm just going to blindly trust whatever the Ravens do in terms of player evaluation. If they think a guy isn't healthy to stay on the field, I'm going to go with them and their track record.
Could be true. Yeah, you might be right. They've certainly proven themselves to be a better franchise with better ability to see what a player is worth. Xavier Rhodes signed with the Colts.
He was terrible.
He was really bad last year, and the Vikings secondary has been completely drained of everyone at this point.
Yep, and even Everson Griffin, who was just a foundational piece of that team, should be hitting the road, but I kind of think Mike Zimmer will be able to cobble together a defense, especially with all the picks they got from that Diggs trade. And I thought the Xavier Rhodes, I was kind of struck by how young it was. I was looking it up. He's in the same draft as Desmond Trufant and Darius Slay, 2 guys who held up and got paid. And then
they just got paid. Yeah.
And I thought it was kind of cute. Like, I was poking around Twitter, and like, that whole cornerback draft class is incredibly close knit. They're all cheering each other, getting jobs, and getting paid on Twitter. It was kind of adorable.
That's fun. Yeah, that's cool. The last bit of news, which pertains to the Lions, is they signed Geronimo Allison, former Packer.
Okay, I don't think he'll see the field that much. I think the Lions receiving corps is probably top 10 in the NFL. Marvin Jones is incredibly slept on. His
Yep.
production, and like, really, the sky is the limit with Kenny Galladay. The physical
He's
tools.
so good.
Yeah, and like, he plays in Detroit, and they were so far out of contention last year, but he was getting double teams the entire year and still got whatever he wanted from a production standpoint.
Yeah.
And like, I think all the great receivers have one physical gift, and Kenny Galladay's body control is incredible to me. Like,
Yeah.
he's what you get when you go to the weight room and Pilates class, and I'm glad to have him aboard. I personally don't think Geronimo Allison will make the team, so
Interesting.
yeah, I think the receiving class is so good that we'll probably go there.
That's
And
true.
I don't think
Yep.
he was great. I think he played with Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about, we can talk more about the draft next week and the week after as we get closer. But it would be fun to talk about some of these quarterbacks that have gotten picked in the last 10 years, either first or second, and whether or not they ended up working out. I looked through the last 10 years, and it's kind of shocking the amount of quarterbacks that were taken either first or second that just completely ended up becoming duds.
Yeah, I mean, that's where I got my reality show Mariota versus Jameis Winston
Yeah,
idea.
exactly. Yeah. So wait, let's start in 2010, 10 years ago. The first overall pick in the draft was Sam Bradford. We all know how that ended up. Is he even in the league right now? Did he retire?
He's out of this league, and he walked away with $134 million in lifetime earnings. He got big contracts from both the Rams and Vikings while never contributing to a winning team. And like, he had the tools. He won a Heisman at Oklahoma, but he just didn't
He
fit
won Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, but even the way that guy looked in a football helmet made me worried. He looked like one of the little giants before they got proper equipment.
He never looked quite right in the football jersey. And those pads, too. They always made his arms look so tiny.
Yeah, and he looked like a kicker out there.
Yeah.
And I always cheered against Sam Bradford. I just think he wasn't talented enough to warrant his draft position. He was misevaluated. I don't think it's necessarily his fault, but I'm glad it didn't work out, because during the 2009 draft, Lions had the first pick, and Bradford made a big show of going back to school to avoid Detroit. So
That's right. And then Stafford came out, right?
yep, so it all worked out for us. I think we'd probably be in the same position if we had Bradford, but I still have one good player on my team.
2011, we saw Cam Newton drafted first. He is one of the few people on this list who actually became worth the first overall pick, in my opinion.
Yeah, and the thing that really made Cam work out was playing for the right coach. Ron Rivera, like, he had great defenses, so Cam was kind of put in like a very simple quarterback role and was allowed to exceed with his physical gifts.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was like having like a game manager on steroids.
Yeah.
And like, so much of this is a crapshoot. Like, if you look at the next year, like, another great player, Robert Griffin III, goes to a bad situation. We see with Cam
that ruined him.
Yeah, like Cam, Ron Rivera built that whole team around how to best maximize Cam Newton. But that didn't happen in Washington.
No,
right
not
when
at all.
Right when
and
he was Go ahead.
It was so exciting to watch RG3 in his rookie year. It seemed like such a promising fit. Like, he was going to be one of the new exciting quarterbacks in the league, like a Lamar. And then they just didn't handle him correctly. They didn't handle his injuries correctly. They didn't handle anything with him correctly. And now he's going to be a perennial backup for the rest of his career. He's a great guy. Like, the way he's handled his situation has been incredible to watch. But it's sad that he was so exciting in his rookie year.
Yeah, and I think he was undermined by his own coach. They did a remarkable investment in him, but Shanahan also picked Kirk Cousins and publicly praised Kirk Cousins. So when Robert Griffin III got hurt, there was so much pressure for him to come back from injury. And, I just think he was run into the ground by the ineptitude of that coaching staff.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the first pick in that draft was Andrew Luck, who we all know retired, but his career, he was an incredible quarterback.
Yeah, well, he gets an incomplete from me, Steve.
Yeah, not enough data.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I enjoyed it's he's the guy who really got it the worst with coronavirus. Like, he retires to travel the world, and now he can't go anywhere. I bet he wish he was staying still in that film room right now.
Yeah, seriously. Skipping ahead to 2015. This is where the year we had the Jameis, Marcus Mariota 1 and 2. And neither of these quarterbacks really panned out the way that people thought they would. This was projected to be one of the better QB draft classes of like the decade, and then didn't really happen that way.
And Marcus Mariota was projected as one of the higher floor players for quarterback prospects in quite some time. And really, he strikes me as Joey Harrington 2.0. So he's like a product of this amazing Oregon Ducks hype machine, and he's kind of a marketing dreamboat who ends up in like a pretty great college offense. And then, he's asked to adapt to the pro game, and it just doesn't happen.
Yep. Kind of sad to see. I'm excited to see if he makes a push in Las Vegas, but I don't know if that'll happen. He might become a career backup at this point. And then Jameis, we already kind of talked about. He could still make something of his career. Like you said, he's really young. He has the arm talent. It's just those turnovers. So he's yet to be seen how that first overall pick turns out.
And Jameis has the physical tools, and it's like with Mariota, you see a clear lack of confidence in him. Just every time I watched him play in Tennessee. But Jameis, at least he has that gunslinger mentality where, he can kind of have a Jeff Georgie career still. Like, I think Mariota's going to bounce around holding clipboards. I don't see a second act for him.
I agree.
And you can find out all of this on the new season of Unbust, Winston versus Mariota for the Vegas Raiders starting quarterback job. Please make it happen. Put it on HBO.
Come on, John Gruden.
Yeah, give him Hard Knocks again.
2016, we had Carson Wentz drafted second overall, and I still think he's so much better than Jared Goff. I thought it when the draft happened. I was very upset when they took Goff over Wentz. And if it wasn't for Wentz's injury history, he would be, he'd be top tier quarterback right now, considered one of the best in the league.
Yeah, and he's about as close as you can get without being a top tier quarterback. And the pre-ACL Carson Wentz was incredible. And I think he's that player still, but I don't know if the Philly roster has really been in a position to maximize his talents.
No, he doesn't really have many weapons there. And then we talk about Jared Goff. Brutal. Like, he was fun to watch in the first couple of years because we were so used to having teams that couldn't move the ball. But it's not Jared Goff that's moving the ball for the Rams. It's Sean McVay's offense. Put any quarterback in this offense, and they will move the ball. And you could just see how Jared Goff responds to pressure, how he responds to big moments when you saw him in the playoffs, in the Super Bowl. He did not deserve that contract, and I'm very upset that it's going to cripple our team for the next 4 years.
Yeah, and I think you see Jared Goff, like, he was successful because he was in a great system, and like a lot of these prospects, if they get the right situation, they can pan out. That happened with Goff, but he's getting that kind of price tag. Whereas you compare him to Carson Wentz, like, Wentz is a Russell Wilson-esque, plug and play him anywhere, and he'll be effective at the quarterback position. Like, just the eye test between these two tells the entire story.
Yes, totally agree. 2017, one of the worst draft day trades of all time, it's looking like, is the Mitch Trubisky second overall pick. Yikes. He is probably not going to start next year. Just 3 years removed from being drafted second overall.
And
Bears look silly.
My favorite piece of football journalism from the past year was the Chicago Tribune did a 15,000 word article about the front office's relationship to Mitchell Trubisky and how they picked him, why they fell in love with him. And it's not just that they picked Trubisky, it's that they didn't cut bait when they should have. Like, Trubisky didn't have a track record, and he shouldn't have been picked that high. He's kind of like, do you remember Mike Mamula from the 90s? Like, he's this guy who people fall in love with during the pre-draft process, and teams fall all over themselves to give away picks to take him, and then just doesn't transition to the NFL level.
Yeah.
Like, that's just a failure of the Bears front office to me. They ignored scouting Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes because they love Trubisky so much.
Yeah. Yeah, and now they're in their situation now where their quarterback room is Nick Foles and Mitch Trubisky, so that'll be awesome to watch this year.
Yeah, and some teams will never have an effective quarterback. Like, the Bears just, from a very fundamental level, they can't evaluate that position. In my lifetime, they haven't had a scary starting quarterback. So you just see the rot of the institution affecting the on-field product. Ooh, it's fun to shit talk the Bears. I love it. This is the best I've felt in weeks.
2018, we had Baker Mayfield taken first overall. He looked good his rookie year. I think the biggest problem with his situation is that he hasn't had a good coach yet.
100%. And he hasn't had a good coach. He hasn't had a good franchise. Like, I don't think there's enough in place to ensure that Mayfield's even in shape. Last year he was overweight. Yeah. I don't know if you followed his quarantine content.
No.
So he did a push-up challenge, and it was the worst form on a push-up I've ever seen. Like,
you can't even do push-ups.
I really think he can't do a push-up. And, like, if I'm looking at Baker Mayfield, I'm asking why the Browns aren't holding him accountable. Like,
yeah.
They ask so much of him.
So many weapons last year.
But I do think he can really take on a wonderful jump this year. I love the pairing of him with Kevin Stefanski in an offense based around Nick Chubb. Like, I imagine Baker Mayfield being incredibly successful as, like, the rich man's Case Keenum in that offense.
Right, yeah. Just give the ball to Chubb over and over and over again. Let Baker make the plays he needs to make, but don't put it all on him.
Yeah, like, we just saw Kirk Cousins put up huge numbers in that offense the past two seasons, and I'm pretty sure the best Baker Mayfield is better than Kirk Cousins.
I would think so as well, yeah.
Yeah, so I am intrigued by the Browns as an over bet for this year, and I think the Browns as a to make the playoffs team, like, if that's on the table, the league and the fan base will coalesce around Cleveland, and it'll be a really fun bet to have in your pocket.
Yeah. And then last year we had Kyler picked first. So far seems like a good pick, but we obviously don't know yet. I think this year he's very hyped to be the next Lamar Jackson, which is scary to put all that pressure on him. And we'll just have to see how Kingsbury does with that offense.
Yeah, it's just the last 2 years we've seen second-year quarterbacks become the face of the league and total sensations. And now you've got a top 5 receiver at your side, so the expectations are sky high. Luckily, it's in Arizona where nothing really matters. Like, people there still root for the Denver Broncos, so he's got another year to figure it out if it doesn't go so well.
Yeah, and those are the last 10 years of first and second overall quarterbacks. Not an impressive group.
No, it's much
considering
worse.
Like, Mahomes is out there. He was picked later in the first. Lamar was picked later on. There's, like, really good QBs in the league that were picked in the last 10 years. Just weren't picked first or second.
Yeah, and thank you for pulling that up. That was a pretty interesting tangent. And, even with this conversation, it seems like the best case scenario is about a 40% success rate.
Right. Which is probably higher than any other place in the draft success rate, but it's still, there's no guarantees.
No guarantees. Not with a first overall pick at quarterback. Not with getting out of our apartments. It's the world we live in, Steve.
Yes. Let's sign off with some happy news. Let's declare an MVP for this last week.
Okay. Who's yours?
I'm gonna say that Drew Brees is the MVP this week. He's donating $5 million to the state of Louisiana to help with coronavirus relief, providing 10,000 meals per day to Louisianians.
Louisianians? Cajuns.
Cajuns. So he is my MVP. If he ran for any sort of office in that state, he would win in a landslide. He's a great dude.
Yeah, okay. Mine will be Myron Rolle. I don't know if you remember him. He was a great Florida State defensive back who would have been a first-round pick in 2013, but he was actually a really smart guy. He was a Rhodes Scholar, so he gave up the NFL for medical school. Now he's a neurosurgeon working with those affected by the coronavirus, so
wow.
Hats off to him. I think that's just such a great story.
Yeah, that rules. That guy was born with everything. He's a physical freak and a genius.
Yeah, kind of like Kyrie Irving, physical freak and one of the great actors of our generation.
All right, we're out of time. I think we've been going for a little over an hour now. Let's wrap it up. This has been the first episode of Pile It On. Sorry if there's any technical difficulties. We're still figuring it out with all this Corona stuff. But I think it'll turn out okay. I'm Steve Clark.
I'm Joel Walkowski.
Joel Walkowski. And thank you for joining us. Make sure to subscribe. This is your first, if you're on the Apple Podcast, if you're on Spotify, if you're on Stitcher. I think those are the 3 we're going to be on. We'll be bringing you new NFL podcast every single week. This is all brought to you also by thepropsnetwork.com. Check that out. Right now, there's not a ton of stuff to bet on, but check out the website. There's betting news. There's casino bonuses if you want to do some online casino play. If you're like really itching to gamble some of your money away.
As you should. Yeah, it's coming from the federal government. It's not yours anyway. Might as well put it on the table.
That's right. All right. That's it for us. Thank you so much.
Later, guys.